Hi YouTube! Today I am going to try and make 3 Halloween themed treats that I have found on Pinterest, and we're gonna decide if I nailed it or failed it. Let's get started, I guess. So firstly, I should introduce these treats. I will be looking at my laptop for reference because I am getting these from the internet. The first one is Mummy Pumpkin Cookies. And while they say cookies, they are actually more of a Pop-Tart because they use a pie crust instead of a cookie dough. But I'm very interested by this filling. Usually when you make a pumpkin pie, it's a very liquidy filling that goes into the shell of the pie, but this one has a lot of dry ingredients, and it even suggests, I don't think I'll do it, but it suggests pressing the pumpkin puree to get some of the excess moisture out. So yeah, the first thing I need to do to make these is make this crust. To make the crust, I needed 1 cup of butter, chilled and cut into cubes, 2.5 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 4 tablespoons of ice water. I added a tad bit more sugar just for taste. I'm pretty familiar with making pie crusts. I'm definitely someone who prefers pies over cakes, and I like to make my own pie. So I'm pretty confident in this recipe. It seems like a good one. For the filling for this one, I needed 3/4 cups of pumpkin puree, 2 ounces of cream cheese softened, 2 tablespoons of packed brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon. I was very tempted to put double the cinnamon in because in my recipes I usually double cinnamon. But I kept to the recipe this time. 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/8 teaspoon of allspice, 1 egg yolk, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 egg white for the egg wash, a tablespoon of water for the egg wash, and then I forgot to sprinkle the cinnamon sugar on, but it should be okay. To create the actual mummies, once I had the crust and the filling, I cut large rectangles and then I cut strips. To do this, I used a butter knife, but I actually turned it upside down so the blunt side was facing the counter. So no, I did not hurt my counter at all. And this crust was very easy to work with. It did not stick to the counter. It was very malleable, and overall it just was quite pleasant actually. So I just took the strips and I just decoratively started putting them on the mummies. If it was a longer strip, I would put it on a mummy that didn't have a lot. Oh yeah, of course I put the filling down first. And yeah, then I transferred these to the pan and put them in the oven to bake. And they baked at 375 for 20 minutes. Afterwards, I stuck the candy eyes on the mummies and yeah, and then cooled them off on the cooling rack. I did immediately take some of these to a game night that we had, so I have already tried one, but I will show you here. I've got 2 more that did not get eaten tonight. Before I try those, let's move on to the next treat. The next treat looks like it would have a pretty similar feel. It's also a hand pie, and these are Halloween chocolate cherry hand pies, and they are shaped like little jack-o'-lanterns. Visually, I just fell in love with these and knew I had to try them. And I put in the ingredients, which are 2 cups of flour, half a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 cup butter, chilled and cubed, again, 10 to 12 tablespoons of ice cold half and half, and then for the filling, it's just a can of cherry pie filling, an egg, and water for the egg wash. So I combined the pie crust for this one in the bowl, and I will say I already knew something was wrong when I started seeing the texture of it. It was very wet, and it felt like the consistency of ice cream if ice cream wasn't cold, not like melted ice cream, just like the consistency of ice cream. And I was very worried about working with it, but it said to chill it. So I coated a Tupperware in flour, stuck it in, and chilled it overnight. And I thought, okay, once it's chilled, it'll be firmer. And it was firmer, that's for sure, but it retained its stickiness. And you'll see as I roll it out here that it is gooping. Maybe I'll have to look back in the footage and see if I messed up the measurements on something. If so, I'll have to retry it. Anyways, I took cookie cutters, and I have this pumpkin-shaped cookie cutter that I wanted to use, and I also used a cauldron-shaped cookie cutter that I thought if I cut out the hole in the cauldron, it could be really cute. But I started with the pumpkin one, and you can see I had to try different places before I was actually able to pick up a piece that I had cut out, because it was just sticking to the counter so much. And the counter was dusted in flour, so it was just soaking up that flour and still sticking, which was immensely frustrating. And I had to stop a few times and just collect myself, because I'm someone who I do enjoy baking, but this made me frustrated and angry. And frankly, what I should have done when I saw the consistency of the dough is I wish that I had looked at it, added twice as much flour, 3 times as much sugar, and honestly, I would still take out half of the half and half. I just think it's easier to work with a pie crust that's not going to stick to everything it touches. It took me a long time to get this all cleaned up afterwards. So yeah, I made the one jack-o'-lantern, and then I made the cauldron shape because I thought, well, that's only 1 hole in the top, it'll be easier, but it was still very frustrating. I did not want to waste this dough, so in my attempt to save what I had made, I grabbed a pie pan and I sprayed it. I clumped up as much of the chocolate dough that I could, stuck it in, coated it in flour so I could actually work with it without it sticking to my hands. And I just punched it into the shape of the pie pan, poured the rest of the cherry filling in there, and then folded it over kind of like a crostata style. Just so that it would be easier to come out, because I wasn't sure how much it would end up sticking to the pan if it stuck to everything else, like even floured surfaces, and I just didn't know if oiled surfaces would even have a resistance to it sticking, so I didn't want it up over the edges because, I mean, cleaning dishware is a hassle. So I stuck that in the oven. I stuck the little hand pies in the oven on a tray, and I let them bake for 18 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Afterwards, I will say, even though making them was terrible, they aesthetically did mostly come out. So I'm not upset about how that looks. It did leak out the side bottom right here a little bit, but you can barely notice that. But yeah, I have a little jack-o'-lantern, and then my cauldron kind of just looks like a blob. There's the cauldron. It's supposed to, I tried to open up like where the opening of the cauldron would be, but it is what it is. As far as the pie goes, I did cook it longer. I'm not sure how long. I kind of just checked it until it looked ready. But the pie looks like it came out. I'm excited to try that. I'll probably not try this until tomorrow, just because I am going to try the hand pies, and I'm already pretty full. I had a big dinner at the game night. It was delicious. So kudos to my new friend. I don't know if I can say her name. I haven't asked her, for making a delicious dinner, and I am full, but I'm still gonna try these. I will, and I said I was making 3 treats, so the third treat that I am going to make is a Halloween kind of green potion-y punch. Oh, it's just called green sherbet punch, but it totally looks like a potion. I will not be making it tomorrow, but I will be making it Monday. Today is Saturday night. I'll be making it Monday because I need to go get the Sprite, and tomorrow's Sunday, so I'm not going to the store. Let's try these hand pies and decide if I nailed it or failed it. All right, so like I said, I have already tried one of these, and I can already tell you they are awesome. This crust is nice and flaky. It definitely, it looks like I layered. It looks like I folded over and layered the dough, but I did not. That's just how it cooked. Looks delicious, and it is delicious. It's very buttery crust. I love that. The pumpkin flavor comes right at you with the filling. You can kind of tell there's the cream cheese in there, but it's not overpowering the pumpkin, which I love. The texture is fantastic, and as you can see, it doesn't drip, it doesn't fall apart very easily. Like the pumpkin filling is not going to drip out of there. Yeah, overall, very good. I did already have the candy eyes. They're just in with the rest of my sprinkles and stuff in my baking section of my pantry. So as far as the mummies go, I would say nailed it. Also, very easy to get that mummy effect with the strips. I thought it would be fiddly, but it wasn't. And they were a hit at the game night that we went to. Our friends loved them. Their kids loved them. Yeah. Nailed it. I fully approve of this recipe, and it will be linked below. The chocolate cherry ham pies. I'm gonna try the cauldron one so I can get B-roll of the jack-o'-lantern one up close. I would not make these again, but they smell great. and I love cherry pie. So maybe this will redeem it. If so, I'll have to try the changes that I would make to the crust. All right, so it's definitely a thinner crust. It's not flaky, but it's definitely chocolate, which I didn't know if that was gonna come through because, like I said, I would have added more sugar to this. But yeah, you're definitely getting that chocolate and cherry vibe. It's actually delicious. Okay, so the sweetness of the cherries, I think, is what makes up for the minimal amount of sugar in the crust. I can see now why they had you put less sugar in. Again, I would add more flour so it's not as sticky. As far as actually making them, I'm gonna say the recipe failed. But once they're cooked, once they're put together, and I was only able to get 2 of these before I gave up and turn the rest into a big pie, which now I know it'll be good, and I'm so excited. And I'm gonna have it for breakfast because I like desserts for breakfast. It's delicious. It's pretty decadent, actually. As far as comparing it to like chocolate covered cherries, I think it's better because the pie crust is a pie crust and not a cookie. It's, like I said, it's very good. I'm gonna finish this. I know, I feel good. The recipe, to be able to work with it, it definitely needs some tweaks, but the overall flavor is fantastic. Now I know changing the recipe can slightly change the flavor, but I think the recipe change suggestions that I have made in this video would not change it all that much because they are more structural changes. Adding more flour is more structural, and adding in that extra bit of sugar would make up for the extra flour that I would put in the recipe. Like I said, I might use half as much, half and half, but I also might eyeball it and go somewhere in between. Recipe fail, flavor nail. Again, too hard to work with, gave up, turned the rest into this pie, cressata, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna have this for breakfast. Yeah. All right, let's skip ahead 2 days to the sherbet punch potion. All right, so here is that. I have the Sprite now, well, Shasta Twist, because, you know, whatever. It's basically the same thing. I was gonna make it in this bowl, but once it's a little too small. Once I looked at how many ingredients there were, I just decided that's not gonna work. So I've got my large drink dispenser here, and the first thing that I need is 10 cups of water, which I have already put in here. Yay! The second thing I need is 2 cups of granulated sugar. So I'm just going to add that now. Then I have a 45-ounce can of pineapple juice. And I'm just going to open that up and put it in with the water and sugar. This is about the time when I realized that this thing is way too high up where it is and I don't want to spill. So I decided to take the dispenser off of the bucket to have more control over what I was doing. Also, yes, the bottom of that can was more concentrated than the top. Then 2 packets of Kool-Aid. This is lemon lime Kool-Aid. Sorry about the camera shaking. My toddler was crawling underneath the tripod legs because he thought that was funny. This is also why I'm voicing over, because he was playing very loudly. All right, and just mix that all together. You'll actually want to mix it more than this, but you know, if a toddler is crawling underneath you, you might want to move him. And we're back. I'm going to start adding the lemon lime soda until I realize I need to stir the bottom more and also get the spoon out of the way because it is going to fill up all the way to the top of this container. It already has a pretty spooky look. Just ignore what I did with the cup there. I am afraid of the dispenser leaking and I didn't want to turn my countertop green. It didn't leak, I don't know. That's just me. All right, and then I added the rest of the soda, and this is when it started getting super spooky looking as we got this frothy foam on top. And I was very impressed by that. Obviously. Oh man, I'm having way too much fun with that. And there's just a little bit of soda left. So I'm going to try and get that in there without it spilling. Right up to the top. Look at that foam. That is a spooky, foamy potion. I was going to get dry ice for this. I'm glad I didn't because I feel like the bubbling would have overwhelmed everything and it would have gotten everywhere. So this is my Get Your Witch On cup and your Witch's Brew and my Witch's Brew cup. And it called for lime sherbet, but I went to 2 different stores and I couldn't find any lime. So I grabbed honeydew because it's green. I actually ended up really enjoying not having a lime sherbet because it added a contrast. And if you had this in a punch bowl, you could add the full quart of sherbet to the punch bowl. But because I have this in a dispenser, I decided to put sherbet in the cups and then pour the solution over it. And I have 2 cups. One obviously is clear so you guys can see, and the other is the potion cup, so it's cool. And I'm gonna bring the other to my husband. So, yeah. And with the sherbet in there, you get a nice foaming effect. And fill up the cauldron. Just a moment. Bottoms up. Let's see if this is a nail or a fail. It's really good. Okay, I am going to say it's a nail. Yay! If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I upload most Mondays, and in October I upload multiple times a week. Don't forget to stay creative. Thanks for watching. Bye.